Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Grandpa Def will save me the trouble of drawing the blueprint. The structure of Sunshot Divine Canon is complicated, so if Grandpa Def could draw it into the real world, it would be much easier and simpler to measure it. Making it would be much easier as well. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. Def sold paintings for many months, yet he had not sold anything. Then Qin Mu came and helped him to sell one painting, and the money he earned was much more than what he had earned in his entire lifetime. This made the heavenly painting Crown Prince sigh ruefully. It was due to the fact that the hearts of people were not like they were in the past. Once he did not have to worry about clothes and food, he had no reason to reject Qin Mu, who was inviting him to Imperial College to help. When Qin Mu came back, he couldn't think about resting. He immediately gathered all hands and assigned them their tasks. With Qing Yu, Yu He, and Yu Yun of Little Jade Capital, Dao Master Lin Xian and 10 Taoists that were proficient in algebra, the algebra experts of Imperial College, the design bureau of the Imperial Court, and Heavenly Saint Cult, as well as village chief, there were a total of 26 people. Including the Dragon Cheline too, they would be responsible for drawing the pictures from the Golden Book and tidying up the space algebra model. The Dragon Cheline's attainments in algebra weren't low after all, no inferior to those of the old Taoists. The Dragon Cheline shed tears of gratitude. He had finally found a reason to not be on the dinner table, so he naturally worked with gusto. The Golden Book had no need for Qin Mu to get involved, so all his energy was focused on Sunshot Divine Canon. Wang Muren, Mu Qingdai, and Long Yu were told by Qin Mu to arrange the space algebra model and array model with the algebra experts of Dao Sect, Imperial College, Design Bureau, and Heavenly Saint Cult. Most of the secretaries from Imperial College's floor of Heavenly Records were experts in formation skills. They were proficient in spell divine arts and were literally walking library of techniques, thus they were also invited by Qin Mu. Sunshot Divine Canon was originally a pupil skill called Sunshot Divine Eyes. It was found by Imperial Preceptor, who had then put it in floor of Heavenly Records, thus secretaries needed to guide them. Qin Mu interacted with them for several days and mastered the formation skills and structure of Sunshot Divine Eyes, changing them into a sequence of formations needed for Sunshot Divine Canon before finishing its structure. Def observed from the side. When Qin Mu determined the structure, Def immediately began to paint. Even he who was acclaimed as art saint took 5 days to finish the drawing of the Divine Canon. When he finished painting, he brought the blueprints he had drawn to the outskirts of the city and chose an empty land to spread them out. Instantly, a terrifying 300 yards tall cannon battery materialized. The land it occupied was extremely vast, taking up the area of 66 hectares. It was different from true origin cannon since it didn't have a cannon tube. It looked just like a huge platform. Beside it was 2 frames which stretched out on their sides, forming circular arcs. At the top of each was a thick and solid axle. The 2 axles were symmetrical and not joined together. At the end of each was a semicircular fork and a space of 240 yards. The 2 forks floated a divine eye that was blazing with fire, rumbling from time to time. When the eye opened, a fire beam would burst forth. When the eye closed, it would rotate on the spot. This was the Sunshot Divine Canon designed from Sunshot Divine Eyes by Qin Mu. Several hundred algebra experts immediately surrounded the materialized drawing and climbed onto all corners of the huge cannon battery. They drew, measured, calculated, and broke down the huge construct into numerous components, recording their structure and length without allowing the slightest mistake. The formation markings on each and every one of the components also had to be measured, so there were a lot of calculations. Qin Mu's design of Sunshot Divine Canon hadn't listed every detail. He had designed the main body of the Divine Canon, but there was no factory big enough to construct such an enormous Divine Canon in one go. That's why if he wanted to construct it, he needed to break it down into smaller components and forge them separately before assembling them together. This was the reason why Qin Mu needed so many algebra experts. With all of them working together to measure and calculate, the coordination between them was also a kind of learning. There was no room for error. Qin Mu invited Emperor Yangfeng from the capital and let him coordinate all the algebra experts. Emperor Yanfeng's injuries had completely recovered, but since they were extremely severe and his divine treasures were still tattered, his cultivation had not yet recovered. He still needed to nurse his health. Qin Mu and Little Poison King Fu Yuanqing had treated him by giving him doses of herbs that were too heavy, tormenting him and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor quite heavily. Even until then, Emperor Yangfeng was still bearing a grudge. Your Majesty, these algebra experts were all invited by me and aren't the subjects of Your Majesty. If something they do displeases you, Your Majesty can't just execute them, Qin Mu instructed. Emperor Yangfeng smiled and said, I'm not those tyrants who like to keep calling for executions, you don't have to worry. The officials from Ministry of Works came along with Heavenly Works Hall Master Shan Yushin having all come back from the front lines. When the war on the prairie had no longer any need for them, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sent them back to the capital. Imperial Preceptor is currently attacking Roland's Golden Palace. When we left, the fight had not yet started, the government minister of Ministry of Works reported to Emperor Yangfeng. Qin Mu immediately summoned all the officials from Ministry of Works and gave them instructions. The government minister of Ministry of Works then reported to Emperor Yangfeng, Supervisor Qin found the 5 manufacturing factories that Your Majesty gave him to be too small and too far from each other. He plans to tear all of them down and build a new factory beside the river. Tear down 5 of my manufacturing factories? They were constructed with real gold and silver. He is splurging so much money because it's not his money. Off with his head. Emperor Yangfeng said in anger. Has Your Majesty forgotten? The factories of our Eternal Peace Empire were designed and improved by Supervisor Qin, the government minister of Ministry of Works said. Emperor Yanfeng's expression softened. He's indeed a capable man. Note down that he owes me his head. After a moment, Qin Mu mobilized the flying ships to tear down the 5 manufacturing factories and move them next to Mud River. Ling Yuxiu's ability to lead and command wasn't weak, so Qin Mu invited her to help coordinate the people constructing the new factory. He then ordered people to move all kinds of divine metals and rare treasures from the treasury to the new factory. Emperor Yangfeng was busy coordinating all the algebra experts so that there would be no mistake. All his energy was used up there. Some 10 days later, the calculations regarding Sunshot Divine Cannon were completed. All of the algebra experts prepared and transformed their vital chi into all the different components they had noted down. They then pieced the tens of thousands of components together without a single mistake, forming a perfect Sunshot Divine Cannon. Nearby, Qin Mu had nearly emptied the imperial treasury and even requested some black gold, black iron, and black copper from the mines all around the empire. Outside the new factory, all kinds of treasures were piled up like a mountain. The new factory had already been started up, and the new pill furnaces that Qin Mu had designed provided an even greater firepower. Hundreds of huge mechanical giants were hammering the black gold and black iron, piling up the smelted gold, silver, iron, and copper orderly. Emperor Yangfeng returned to his senses and summoned the government minister of Ministry of Works over. What's left in my imperial treasury? The government minister of Ministry of Works hesitated for a moment. Your Majesty, there's basically nothing left. All of the materials in the treasury have been emptied out by Supervisor Qin. Emperor Yangfeng walked into the new manufacturing factory and saw the inside buzzing with activity. All kinds of new machinery were activated, and the pill furnaces were blazing to maintain the operations of the mechanical giants. Boilers of all sizes were steaming with hot air while giving off dazzling rays. The amount of medicinal stones the new factory consumes in a day is equivalent to the medicinal stones consumed by a medium-scaled war in a day, explained the government minister of Ministry of Works. Supervisor Qin also designed the energy source for the divine cannon, and they are 56 of the strongest pill furnaces. The number of medicinal stones depleted for one activation will be almost the same as the number of medicinal stones Imperial Preceptor had taken to wage war on barbarian Di Empire. Emperor Yangfeng was dumbstruck. After a moment, he slowly said, it's not his money that's being spent. Where's Supervisor Qin? I would like to ask him if he feels good about splurging my money. Supervisor Qin brought the princess to have a drink. The government minister of Ministry of Works then added carefully, He said he owed someone a drink and that person had been waiting for many days. There's basically nothing else he can do here, so he might as well treat that person to a drink so that he doesn't owe him a favor anymore. When the princess heard it, she decided to follow after him. A small fox also went with them. Supervisor Qin said that he didn't have any good wine, so the princess went to get some tribute wine from the palace. Emperor Yangfeng was angered. I was invited by him and have to hurry here and there, and look what he's doing, running away to drink wine, and even my wine. He even brought my daughter to spend time to drink and have fun. Off with his head. The government minister immediately said, "Your Majesty, Sunshot Divine Cannon is not done yet." Emperor Yangfeng felt very much refreshed. Then note down that he owes me his head first. Supervisor Qin said that the salary can't be delayed. He has already written a list, so may your Majesty take a look. Emperor Yangfeng took a look and became furious again. So much money? My treasury has already been emptied by him, so where will I get the money for him? Off with his head. Your Majesty, barbarian Di Empire has been conquered and Wolf Store country is being invaded now, so we will have money soon, the government minister immediately said. Emperor Yanfeng's anger turned into joy and he smiled. Fine, then just note down that Supervisor Qin owes me his head. I can't treat these heavenly workers badly. We will pay them once we have the money. Is there any news from the northern border? Your Majesty, General of Heavenly Strategies has sent report of a victory. They have broken into Wolf Store country's king's courtyard and the ruler has surrendered. General of Heavenly Strategies will stand guard at Wolf Store country while the Crown Prince will be escorting the ruler of Wolf Store country. They will reach here either today or tomorrow. Emperor Yangfeng nodded and smiled. There's a lot less to worry about Yushu than his older brother. Supervisor Qin. Emperor Yangfeng raised his hand. Don't talk about him. Change a person, change to another topic. Grand Chancellor Gu Linwan asked Ministry of Revenue if he could have his salary a month in advance. No money. Emperor Yangfeng sneered and said, Grand Chancellor Gu is always toadying for personal gain, how could he lack money? Lord Gu is really broke. The government minister of Ministry of Work smiled. He spent all his belongings to redeem Junior Protector sword back. I've heard the Saintess of Heavenly Saint cult had brought the sword and asked him if he wanted it back, thus Lord Gu became bankrupt. Furthermore, Lord Gu has also helped with the drawing and measuring of the Divine Cannon, so he also made a contribution and thus wanted an advance salary. Emperor Yangfeng asked in puzzlement, wasn't Junior Protector sword with Supervisor Qin? How did it land in the hands of Heavenly Saint cult Saintess? Bah, you have mentioned him again, off with your head. I have not lost just the family's fortune, I've lost the entire empire's fortune. Where will I find any money? All of you want money from me, yet I've already sold almost all the things in the palace that can be sold, only the dragon robe and the dragon throne are left. I really have nothing left to sell. The government minister smiled and said, Your Majesty, once you unify the prairie and the snow plains, the money will naturally come. Furthermore, with Supervisor Qin improving the manufacturing factories, if we forge all kinds of flying ships and machinery to sell to the merchants, money will naturally flow in like water into our treasury. Emperor Yangfeng sighed. Note down that both you and he owes me their heads. I wonder, with whom does Supervisor Qin plan to drink while bringing my precious daughter along? Young Master Shu, have you drank the tribute wine of the Imperial Palace? In rain listening pavilion of the capital city, Qin Mu poured some wine for Shu Shenho while girls were playing instruments and dancing along to the music. He smiled and said, This is the imperial wine that the 6th princess brought. I rarely drink wine so I don't know if it's good or bad, but what do you think of the taste? Dressed in a male get-up, Ling Yuxiu looked around with her beautiful eyes while slightly excited in her heart. The one who herds cows actually brought me to a cat house. If father learned about this, he would definitely execute him. This is the most famous cat house in the capital, Rain Listening Pavilion. But it doesn't seem like that erotic place from the legends. Hu Linga and the girls of Rain Listening Pavilion were very familiar, so she had long run away to gossip with her friends. Even though Shu Shenho had stepped into a place of hardships, he still looked untainted as he enjoyed the fine wine. The wine of the imperial court may be good, but it still can't be compared to the fine wine of my high heavens. It should be the time in the cellar that's not long enough. If Cult Master Qin drank the fine wine of my high heavens before drinking this wine, he would definitely be able to taste the difference. Lin Yuxiu looked at the youth in front of Qin Mu with curiosity. Shu Shenho was exquisite as if he was made of jade. He didn't look like a real human. There were no faults to point out in his appearance, dressing, actions, or even words. On the other hand, Qin Mu, who was sitting in front of him, had numerous small faults. His appearance wasn't too beautiful. Even though he didn't look bad, he couldn't be compared to Shu Shenho. Qin Mu was slightly robust and gave people the feeling that he was full of vigor. Even when he was busy and had no time to sleep, he still seemed to be in high spirits. Shu Shenho, on the other hand, seemed reserved and steady. He gave off a presence as if he wouldn't be alarmed even if the sky fell, his heart as still as water. Qin Mu was sometimes overly humble and was sometimes overly arrogant. Even though his heart was kind, it was also evil. Sometimes he was dense, yet at other times he could pluck on other people's heartstrings like flowers blooming in spring. Qin Mu was careful when doing things at times, to the point that not one drop of water could leak out, but at other times, he was rough and rushed into things headlong with brute force. He would frequently cause trouble like that. Sometimes he was very clever yet so stupid that he would make people grit their teeth in anger. However, all of this couldn't be used to describe Shu Shenho. He was like a perfect person that had no flaws. It may be overboard to describe a man as beautiful, but it wasn't the case for him. He was such a person. No matter if it was his enemy or his friend, they would have a feeling of being bathed in the spring wind when facing him. He's so fake that there's nothing true about him. Lin Yuxiu took a glance at the two girls behind him and felt pity for them. She could see their fiery gazes when they looked at him, but it was obvious that they had developed feelings for the wrong guy. For such a perfect person like Shu Shenho, it was impossible to love them. Even if he did so, they wouldn't dare to accept because they themselves weren't perfect. They would always feel inferior. This kind of love wouldn't last long. It would merely be an unrealistic dream. When we first met, I didn't know you and I would be enemies. Qin Mu placed his wine cup and said, when I learned of it, I was very upset. We could have become friends, but it's going to be fine as is. I need an enemy like you. He revealed a smile. There aren't many outstanding people like you and me in this world. If we were all friends, that would be disappointing. Lin Yuxiu stretched out a finger to poke him and said in a low voice, the one who herds cows, be a little more humble. Qin Mu smiled and said, I'm just speaking the truth. Behind Shu Shenho, Yu Liu smiled. Human Emperor is truly not humble. High Heavens is not the world of mortals. Shu Shenho of High Heavens isn't a mortal of your mortal world, so how could you be compared with him? Shu Shenho shook his head and said, Human Emperor has the right. As the successor of the Hall of Human Emperors who had fought against High Heavens for 20,000 years, why couldn't he be compared to me? If you insult him, you're insulting me as well. Yu Liu's face turned red. I came down the mountain to get rid of the new Human Emperor, but I thought Brother Qin was Daozi of Dao sect when I first met you. Never would I have expected you to be that Human Emperor I was looking for. Only afterward did I learn that I had missed a meeting with you. After coming to the mortal world, I have met numerous outstanding people from the younger generation, and even consulted them, but they were all not to my expectation. Thinking back, it's still Brother Qin who stunned me the most, Shu Shenho said. Qin Mu poured wine for him and smiled. I promised you a drink, and after it, no matter if it's you beating me to death or me beating you to death, it will still be a pleasant and fortunate event. No regrets will be left behind. Shu Shenho raised his cup to toast him, and the two of them touched their cups from a distance before drinking everything in one go. Qin Mu sighed ruefully. As Overlord bodies, we still have the difference between genuine and pseudo. For you to be able to find me, it's not just a coincidence. Instead, it's the connection between the genuine and the pseudo. You and I are destined to be enemies and not friends. Overlord body? Shu Shenho was at a loss. So Brother Shu doesn't know about Overlord body. Qin Mu pointed at himself and smiled. I'm the Overlord body, you are the pseudo-Overlord body. Between you and I, there's a connection in the unseen world. It's not because you are the disciple of high heavens and I'm the disciple of human emperor that we have to fight to the death. It's because both you and I are Overlord bodies. You are the pseudo-Overlord body and I'm the true Overlord body, so you have to kill me to snatch my fate and become the true Overlord body. Shu Shenho was left at even more of a loss. It's also no wonder that Brother Shu doesn't know about the details, Qin Mu said seriously. Regarding the Overlord body, it's a hidden secret and not many people know about this. Look, as one of the most outstanding people in this world, you became the disciple of high heavens and I became the human emperor of all things. Do you think this is a coincidence? No. The youth tightened his hands into fists and said with strength, this is the work of fate between the Overlord bodies. Shu Shenho was flabbergasted. After a moment, he said, I'm an Overlord body? My master Jade Sovereign never mentioned this. Overlord body is the strongest physique. Do you find learning everything simple and master anything when you just learn it for the first time? Before the other four great spirit bodies can even begin to learn something, you have already mastered it, Qin Mu said with a grim face. Shu Shenho nodded and said in astonishment, so this is the Overlord body. That's right. Qin Mu placed the wine cup down and said with agitation, do you feel that the other people's cultivation isn't as dense as yours? Even with the same divine arts, the power of their divine arts is not as strong as yours. Shu Shenho nodded again and said, when I was 14 years old, I had no opponents in high heavens anymore. Even when my master sealed his divine treasures, his magic power wasn't as dense as mine. This is Overlord body. Qin Mu said with a sincere gaze. Shu Shenho muttered to himself for a moment. So this is Overlord body. However, why does Brother Qin say that he's the true and I'm the pseudo-Overlord body? What's the difference between them? His expression was very serious. Qin Mu poured wine for him once again and smiled. You can't defeat me, so you're the pseudo-Overlord body. Come, as fellow Overlord bodies, let's have a toast. The two people drank their cup in one go, and Shu Shenho shook his head. How can we know who would win or lose if we haven't fought before? I might be the true one and you the fake one. Maybe the destiny in the unseen world has brought you to snatch my fate to become the true Overlord body. Qin Mu was astonished and scratched his head while saying, there's this possibility too. Come, let's have another toast for true Overlord body. He pushed one jar of wine to the front of Shu Shenho while he brought a jar for himself to gulp down with his head up high. Shu Shenho frowned. Even though he had drunk wine before, he always had his limits, stopping after a taste. He would never let loose and drink to his heart's content. However, Qin Mu had already hugged the jar and downed the wine, so he could only raise his own jar to drink with him. Ling Yuxiu took her finger to prod Qin Mu and said softly, the one who herds cows, you are almost drunk, stop drinking. Qin Mu took a long swallow, already somewhat drunk. He smiled and said, it's rare to meet a person on the same path, so it's natural to get drunk. Sister, fetch some wine from the imperial palace. There's no more, I took the last 3 jars of wine. All the tribute wine was sold by father to get money to fill the treasury. Ling Yuxiu shook her head and added, even some of my accessories and clothes were also sold by father. Qin Mu laughed out loud. He smacked the jar on the table and rose up while saying, I planned to drink until we were drunk and fight with Brother Shu after we sobered up, but I didn't consider that the wine might run out before we got really drunk. Brother Shu, let's go. Shu Shenho placed the wine jar down and stood up. Jing Yang immediately fetched a wet towel for him to wipe his hands and mouth. Let's go. The two of them walked out. On the way, Qin Mu turned back to say, Sister Yuna, put it on my tab. Fu Qingyan chuckled and said, Cult Master is joking. Rain Listening Pavilion is Cult Master's property, so what tab is there? Ling Yuxiu's face turned black. So the one who herds cows actually opened a cat house. I thought why this fellow would actually bring me to visit a cat house, but it was because he had opened it himself. She walked out with quick steps, and Hu Linga immediately followed. Beside her followed Yu Liu and Jing Yang, who were carrying a peeper and a jade vase. Clanking came from outside the capital, the sound of the manufacturing factory forging the components of Sunshot Divine Cannon. Qin Mu and Shu Shenho walked side by side as they came out of the city near the origin of the noise. Yu Liu and Jing Yang felt uneasy. It was all Qin Mu's men over there, and they couldn't help worrying that he would suddenly give an order for those experts to get rid of Shu Shenho. Qin Mu led Shu Shenho over and said, "How does Brother Shu view Eternal Peace Empire's atmosphere?" "Very extraordinary." Shu Shenho examined the pill furnaces and mechanical giants in the factory and couldn't help but praise superb craftsmanship. Qin Mu fetched a large piece over and gently stroked the markings on it. He observed the flawless craftsmanship and said, "I've spent much care on this divine cannon. I found countless algebra experts and used up all the treasure in the treasury of Eternal Peace Empire. In 2 or so months, the cannon will be done. If you will be still alive by then, you must come and take a look. This divine cannon is used to kill high heavens." Shu Shenhua's heart trembled slightly, and he carefully examined the markings. With a grim face, he then went to check markings on other components. Qin Mu let him walk around freely as he waited quietly with his hands behind his back. He thought to himself, "Your heart got messed up before the fight even began, so you have already lost. Brother Shu, you've still had too few life and death experiences." It wasn't only cultivation, divine arts, and techniques that influenced life and death battles. The mind and knowledge also affected them. Regarding this point, Qin Mu was well experienced. There were numerous experts in Dao sect who would usually calm their hearts down, burn incenses, and take a bath before their life and death battle. Some would even meditate for 3 days to get rid of all the distracting thoughts in their mind, to not let any thoughts affect their thoughts in battle. They would let them flow naturally. Even though Shu Shenho said that he had beat the entire high heavens and had no opponents on the same realm, the fights in high heavens were usually not those of life and death battle. He had too little experience in this field and could be said to be a blank piece of paper. Even though the mortal world was tainted to him, it had numerous life and death battles. No matter if it was Dao Master Lin Xian, a person that was high up like Pan Gongso, young experts like Ling Yuxiao, Cai Yunxiang, Chen Wanyun, or even reputable people like Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Yang Feng, all of them had risen above others through the grind of life and death battles. In terms of knowledge in battles, they surpassed Shu Shenhua by miles. If it was Qin Mu, he would never go and check the components of enemy Sunshot Divine Cannon before a life and death battle. It was because that would deplete his brain power too much. To design Sunshot Divine Cannon, Qin Mu had invited hundreds of algebra experts and even professionals and talents in forging treasures. He literally redesigned the manufacturing factory and gathered the knowledge of all those people he brought over to forge Sunshot Divine Cannon. If Shu Shenhua wanted to understand its marvels, he would have to memorize all their knowledge in a short time. The exhaustion to the mind from that could be easily imagined. His mind's exhaustion would definitely bring exhaustion to his abilities as well. His adaptability in battle would lessen greatly. To an expert like Qin Mu, it didn't matter if Shu Shenhua's ability to adapt would slow down only by a millisecond. That would be enough to determine victory or defeat. Shu Shenhua examined the markings on the components in the manufacturing factory and calculated the shape and power of Sunshot Divine Cannon. There were tens of thousands of components, and the runes on each and every one of them was different, and the same went for formations markings. Without going in order, he would have to rely on his strong brain to piece them together, and this exhausted his mind even more. Suddenly, he felt slightly giddy and came to a realization. He hurriedly closed his eyes, only opening them to look at Qin Mu after a moment. Qin Mu revealed a smile and nodded at him. His smile was as radiant as the sunshine, and he looked like a big boy that did not even know what scheming meant. However, in Shu Shenhua's eyes, that radiant smile seemed incomparably evil. "Many thanks, Brother Qin. I've learned a new move." Shu Shenhua composed himself and walked over. As he did so, he tried his best to forget all the runes he had memorized earlier. Even though it was a last-minute effort, it was better than not doing anything. Qin Mu gave a slight smile as he walked out of the manufacturing factory. He said leisurely, Brother Shu, do you still think it's good for you to stay in high heavens? Shu Shenho shook his head. While staying in high heavens, I never experienced true battles, and that did slow my growth. The mortal world is indeed a place for people to grow, and since Brother Qin grew up here, you are truly the most terrifying opponent I've met. The two of them walked side by side up the mud river. Behind them, Hu Linga, Ling Yuxiu, Yu Liu, and Jing Yang followed and stepped onto the river surface. At that moment, numerous Taoists walked out from the manufacturing factory, led by Tao Master Lin Xian. They followed them step for step and came to the river. Tao Master Lin Xian looked over with astonishment. He ignored the four girls, his gaze falling on Qin Mu and Shu Shenho who were walking on the river. Tao Master, those two youths are both very strong, an old Daoist said in a low voice. We all know Cult Master Qin, his methods are profound, but what's the origin of the other youth? High heavens, Shu Shenho, I met him when I followed Master to Little Jade Capital. Tao Master Lin Xian's gaze flickered. He defeated me in 5 moves. The hearts of numerous Taoists of Tao sect trembled. Even Qin Mu could not say to be able to defeat Tao Master Lin Xian in 5 moves. Over the years, Tao Master Lin Xian had cultivated along old Tao Master, and his attainments in algebra had gotten even deeper. His comprehension of Tao sword had also become higher and higher. His ability was definitely not inferior to that of old Tao Master back then and might even surpass his. Tao Master Lin Xian's footsteps didn't stop as he brought everyone forward. He said softly, his technique becomes stronger when he meets stronger opponents. The most terrifying thing is that the stronger his opponent is, the more power would be aroused from his technique and divine arts. In Little Jade Capital, he defeated many people. I would like to know if there's someone who can receive his divine arts, someone who can force him to break through the limits of his technique and divine arts, to reach the limit. Human Emperor might be such a person. Tao Master's fighting spirit suddenly became vigorous, but he controlled it so that it wouldn't interfere with the two fighters. The river water surged. Qin Mu and Shu Shenho didn't stop in their footsteps and continued to walk forward. Soon, they crossed to the opposite shore of the river, but their feet didn't stop. This video will end here.